Bloodborne, perhaps the best dating simulator ever made.
Away! Away! You plague-ridden rat! Oh God!
But in reality, From Software's 2015 masterpiece is a brutal, Lovecraftian nightmare. Fuck that. But I just want to take a moment of your time and talk about the section of Bloodborne that made me say and realise that this game was something extra special. We're going to be looking at Old Yharnam and why it feels so distinct from the rest of Bloodborne. Old Yharnam is near the beginning of the game, but so far in your journey you have gone through Central Yharnam and the Cathedral Ward, fighting off many ghoulies and bad guys in the accursed streets and this guy with a brick. But once you reach the entranceway of Old Yharnam, the doors are sealed and there is this note.
This town is long abandoned. Hunters not wanted here.
Which is rather unsettling because at this point you have fought many horrors along the accursed streets and this guy with a brick. So what on earth could be behind this door that is so terrifying that it's been sealed away from the rest of the game world? It is a fantastic way to build anticipation and to drive that feeling home. When you first enter Old Yharnam, you're greeted with this.
You there! Hunter! Didn't you see the warning? Turn back, or the hunter will face the hunt.
A promise that you too will become hunted. Oh, stop it, you naughty devil you. So for context, in the storyline, Old Yharnam is a section of the city that was overrun with beasts and subsequently was burnt down by the hunter group known as the Powder Kegs. So the aesthetic of this area is one of smouldering ruins, smoke-obscured streets with prowling beasts that stalk you from the dark corners of this cursed district. The lurking monsters and atmosphere is established perfectly, and it has you on the edge of your seat with a tension that is relentless throughout. And whilst playing through this part of the game, I realised that Old Yharnam feels like a mini dungeon, which is helped in part by the level's map design. It is a simple one, consisting of 2 levels, the lower level and the upper level, where you begin your descent into madness. So you begin your journey, and after killing a few dog people, you are warned once again by this mysterious stranger.
Which is why I must stop you.
So this entire section of the upper and lower level have now been given an environmental danger, the danger of gun. So this is excellent, it adds that extra layer of danger whilst you're being swamped by these weird dog creatures. And once you kill a few more of the doggos, you end up coming across one of the last remaining Powder Keg hunters, which is super refreshing for the gameplay because you've been fighting these creatures who swarm you and they have like pack tactics because they're beasts, but now you are facing a skilled hunter like yourself. Their technique is way different than all the other enemies. They're trying to counter all of your attacks and they keep the pressure on pretty hard. So you've got an escalation in environmental danger, the escalation of a new enemy type, and then once you gank his ass, you can make your way up that tower to find that minigun punk. Who turns out to be a character called Jorah, an NPC who you can befriend, but this has been shooting at us the entire time, so he's getting murked. Next, you enter a humble little church with nothing wrong going on. You stumble across a nice little sermon and begin to murder the entire congregation. So once you make your way through the church, you are now into the lower levels proper. And what makes this feel like a great mini dungeon is that there are 3 ways to get to the lower levels. 2 of those routes serve as shortcuts in case you die and have to start from the beginning of the level. It's one of those design elements that From Software gets right consistently. The shortcuts aren't too spread apart, they're not too easy to find, they are the perfect middle ground, so when you unlock them, they really do feel earned. So what is there to say about the lower levels of Old Yharnam? Well, it's quite unique in that it is a fucking nightmare. Big doggos, huge poison bastards hiding in the smoke, an abandoned graveyard filled with burning crucified bodies leading up to an ominous church. It's fine. It's totally fine. I'm fine. I'm sure everything will be fine. Once you peek inside this church, you know, and I know, this is gonna be a boss fight. But there is something special about this particular boss fight, and to illustrate it properly, we have to go back to the previous 2 boss fights. So Central Yharnam's first boss, the Cleric Beast, is not your typical Soulsborne boss, because they don't have a cutscene to introduce them. It just slams on down and starts slapping ass until you're dead.
Oh! Ah!
What makes the Cleric Beast such a treat is the way in which it is revealed. So that's boss number 1, but most Bloodborne bosses are telegraphed with an obvious boss room, like Old Yharnam's boss. Or they are given a cutscene like the second boss in Central Yharnam, Father Gascoigne. It is no way near as intense as the Cleric Beast's introduction, but Father Gascoigne's cutscene really sells you on that feeling of, this guy is about to f my shit, and once the cutscene is over, he proceeds to f your shit. So that's the second boss of Bloodborne, but now if we go back to Old Yharnam's boss, this doggo doesn't get a cutscene like the usual Bloodborne boss, and it isn't a surprise like the Cleric Beast. It has a telegraphed boss room, but it is just stood there, waiting for you, and that freaks the ever-living shit out of me. It's like you know you're walking to your demise, and when you are close enough, this name pops up. Holy shit. Well, that doesn't sound absolutely terrifying. Not at all. I'll tell you what does sound terrifying. The boss music of this stage. And then you get to see this cutie up close. He's happy, he's flappy, and he made me do a crappy. Like this boss's name suggests, this fight is frantic and frenzied. You feel like you are constantly on the back foot against this dog. Defeating this boss on your first playthrough felt like such a tremendous achievement because boy howdy, that is one angry pup. So this phenomenal boss fight ties up Old Yharnam with a nice pretty bow, but what makes Old Yharnam quite separate from the other areas of the game is that you don't go to a new area from Old Yharnam. You see, you start in Central Yharnam and then go to the Cathedral Ward, and then you go from the Cathedral Ward to Old Yharnam. So you would expect to go from Old Yharnam to the next place, but you don't. And this truly makes Old Yharnam feel like it's its own section in the game, and just like the lore suggests, it truly does feel abandoned. So that's why I say that Old Yharnam feels like a mini dungeon, because it is a perfect and unique little slice of Bloodborne that stands completely on its own, and it made me realise that Bloodborne will probably be in my top 5 favourite games forever. It is just fantastic. So if you've got a hankering to delve into some Lovecraftian, gothic, horror exciting gameplay, then boot up Bloodborne again, or if it's your first time playing it, look out for Old Yharnam. It's a hoot. And the great thing about Bloodborne is, this is one small section where every single other area is just as good, if not better. Alrighty, well thank you for watching this video about Bloodborne and Old Yharnam. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, like, share the video around, I'd love that a lot. And yeah, I'll catch you next one. Love you all. Goodbye.